Hello everybody, Dokkan Assets here. Today we are back with another Dokkan animation analysis video, and I literally can't believe the words that are about to come out of my mouth. But ladies and gentlemen, today we are taking a look at the LR Dr. WHEELO. That is right. I literally cannot believe that the boy Dr. WHEELO finally got a card in Dokkan after such a long time of fans asking for him to get a card in the game. He has been released as a Prime Battle LR as a part of the TURLES celebration, and I gotta be honest with you, his super attacks kind of surprised me. They might even be better than TURLES's. That also may or may not be the title of the video. I don't know. We'll see. But as per usual with these videos, we always like to watch through these one time through on full speed, and then of course we go through them frame by frame. I also always like to mention, like that the video quality is terrible right now. YouTube, what are you doing? Put that boy in 1080p. Thank you. That of course, as per usual, I'm not an animation professional, but I take a look at Dokkan animations all the time, and I think I have a pretty good understanding of what makes them really good. As well, we do also have a little bit of a treat because I waited a little bit to do this one. We actually have a little bit of a side-by-side comparison with the original material, so that will be really cool to take a look at in a second here. But yeah, Prime Metal LR as well, also with a intro animation and an active skill, which is pretty crazy, honestly. I kind of did not anticipate him being an LR at all, for one thing, and not to mention, right, also, sorry, I'm closing my window, it's hot outside, also having an intro and an active skill at all, because obviously you would think, like, you know, for a unit that has literally gotten no love in the past, like, however many years of Dokkan, that, you know, we haven't. I mean, I guess technically that would be, what, 8, right? Dr. WHEELO has quite literally never had a unit in the game, and all of a sudden, now that he does, he has all these animations, so I think it is pretty cool that they did that, and not to mention, considering he is a Prime Battle LR, most Prime Battle LRs don't have a active skill and an intro animation respectively. So let's go ahead and go through this. I think we'll kind of save this, by the way, which is the side-by-side comparison of the original animation, to a little bit later in the video if there's anything we want to take a look at, but we will definitely take a look at this because I think some of the ways that they implemented some of the animations for the Dokkan card from the movie are actually really cool. By the way, as per usual, shout out to IKevinX. I will leave a link in the description to this video and his channel where you can check out. He does stuff like this all the time with, like, literally basically every new Legends and Dokkan unit. Sometimes the thing is, though, I can't always include them because I like to do them as soon as the unit comes out, and obviously, like, the TURLES one is right here, but it was unfortunately after I already had made my video. So anyway, let's go ahead and hop into it here, and let's actually start from the beginning and take a look at my man's super attacks. So first of all, very cool cameo, obviously right here from Dr. I think his name is Kachin or something like that. It's basically the doctor who is trying to assist Dr. WHEELO in getting his body back. I thought that that was cool because obviously he doesn't fight whatsoever in the movie. He's just one of the scientists that makes... Are they actually called the Bio Warriors, or is that just a TFS thing? You know, like the little, like, red, yellow, and green, I think, or something like that. The minions, basically, that the Z Fighters fight. Obviously, like Dr. Kachin, I'm just going to call him that. I don't remember if that's his name. I'm pretty sure it's something close like that. Is obviously the one who's, like, doing everything because, of course, Dr. WHEELO's just, you know, head in a jar. But very cool that they had a cameo from him. Unfortunately, he doesn't have any voice lines, but I mean, like, it's okay. Obviously, it's supposed to be a Dr. WHEELO card, so it's kind of cool that they bothered to even include him at all in there, right? I just like that he has a cameo. We have this very cool zoom, where obviously going from the top of his head, right? I really like how this whole shot is set up, right? First of all, you know, it comes in with him there, and then they have him get a little bit smaller with this quick zoom, right? And then obviously you see Dr. WHEELO kind of in the background, and then they actually do kind of blur, I think at the end, a little bit, kind of looks like it. Or maybe it's just the perspective, right, of obviously the top of his dome going away as the background gets brighter, and then you can see Dr. WHEELO in the jar, which is cool. And not to mention, they actually zoom in a little bit for this, which is funny because they honestly could have just, you know, kept on the other shot because, of course, you know, you can't see his mouth moving. So it's really cool, honestly, and I think this looks really, really good. They did a fantastic job on the assets for the brain. Really, really nicely done, if I do say so myself. Like, I mean, again, it's an intro animation, so it's supposed to be simple. It's supposed to be just an introduction to the character, and I think they did a great job. I will say, I just want to point out for this animation, because there's really two animations that I want to use this video for specifically. I think it's interesting with the intro here, right, that Dr. WHEELO is actually kind of like behind Dr. Kachin. Again, I'm just going to call him that, I'm sorry. But they just cut to Dr. WHEELO and then kind of show him in the jar, right? So it's cool that Dokkan kind of changed the perspective to fit their game, because obviously since it's not a landscape game, they can't format it like this. So they kind of just changed it a little bit to be a little bit more like portrait mode almost of this scene, which is pretty cool. The only thing that it seems like they basically cut out was this sort of in-between shot from the anime where they show kind of like the side of the brain and then they show like the middle, but I don't think it's too big of a loss. It's literally like one scene, and I don't think not having it there subtracts anything from the actual Dokkan scene. But yeah, obviously a slight bit of different in the color, but overall I think Dokkan did a really good job recreating the scene. And again, that asset looks fantastic, if I do say so myself. Okay, so now moving on to the 12 key super attack, I believe. I actually don't remember if this is the 12 key or the 18 key, because Dokkan has been doing it kind of weird lately, where they've been switching some of the animations around in the way that they usually like showcase the essays on Twitter. But anyway, we have Dr. WHEELO flying through space here, which looks pretty cool. You can see a little bit of minimal movement on his entire body there, which is nice. You have this little bit of a zoom and a sharp cut to him coming through. Look at the nice little bit of movement on him right there that they have with his arms as he then begins to wind up. And obviously then cracks Goku, which is kind of funny that he doesn't use the arm that he like actually wound up the punch for almost. He uses the one that's like right here and then cracks Goku right there, which I think this looks pretty good. And not to mention, not only does it have this little like obviously kind of hit effect, you can actually see Dr. WHEELO moves a little bit afterward, which kind of gives it that effect like there's actually some impact at the punch and there's a little bit of recoil, which is awesome because I feel like a lot of lesser Dokkan animations kind of throw that by the wayside, and that's just something that's so simple that makes these animations really come alive. We have Dr. WHEELO disappear, which looks really good, and reappear behind Goku. Pretty cool shot right there. I will say, obviously, with him winding up and then hitting Goku. Animation-wise, no real complaints for me. It's very simple. The movement is nice, and I do like this little impact frame that they have here. I guess it's kind of a little bit of a way that they don't have to animate everything, right? And then this way, they can just kind of have an impact frame and call it a day. But I think it fits, obviously, because he has, like, claws. It's almost like he's slashing Goku, basically, which, I mean, I guess is quite literally what happens there. But obviously, then he, well, not teleports away. I guess it's more like just moving quickly rather than teleporting. The card art appears on the screen, which is pretty cool, might I add. And then we have him basically come in, which is interesting because here at the bottom, right, this kind of looks like the same shot as the beginning. Let's actually go back to that. So not this one in particular, but the next one right here. Is that like the same exact asset? I'm trying to get like the frame before he teleports, or I guess it would be after he teleports, right? It looks a tiny bit different. It's hard to tell. I think that his pose is a slight bit different. Yeah, his pose is definitely a little bit different, but it's definitely the same framing, which is kind of interesting. I guess it is just an in-between shot, but that's something I feel like maybe they could have framed differently, though we'll see in a sec when we look at the comparison, if maybe that's just the way the anime did it. But then we have the red, which is cool. So this is a very interesting one, and I actually kind of wanted to take a look at that next to the actual animation from the movie, because this is pretty interesting, right? So obviously, for this scene, he's beating around the Z-Fighters. But the cool thing, oh, I want to see here, hold on, right before that with the shot that we were just talking about, when he teleports in, right after the card art, yeah, okay, I guess that's not in the anime. It's interesting they included that there, because I feel like they honestly could have just cut that out and then went to this, right, with him basically getting the red around him. So I thought this was interesting, right? This particular scene right here, as you can see, isn't really like an attack per se, I guess, right? You can see that for this moment where it hits the enemy sprite, it's basically just when Dr. WHEELO is falling, right? It's sort of that like effect that like spaceships have when they're falling down towards the planet. But what's interesting is that Dokkan kind of frames this as like a attack, right? If we go back to the original here, you can see him like kind of charging it up and then flying forward towards the enemy and bonking them basically, with the look of them then flying on top of him. And basically the essay just ends like that, which is kind of funny, that that's supposed to just be like the end of the attack. It just fades out that way. I wonder if that means, is the KO screen then Dr. WHEELO like pushing him into the sky? But yeah, either way though, I think that's a really interesting way to use this, because obviously like Dr. WHEELO didn't attack too much in the movie, definitely not as much as some other characters in other Dragon Ball movies, but it was cool that they kind of used this scene, right, and still tried to keep it as anime accurate as possible while also sort of changing it to work in the game. I thought that was really interesting. I definitely like that little aspect of it quite a bit. I think that's really interesting. Okay, so then we have the 18 key super attack, which also looks really good. We have Dr. WHEELO up in space, as you can see here, with him looking down at the planet and firing a bunch of lasers, right? A bunch of, I guess it would technically be key blasts, right? Or would you consider these lasers because they're robotic? Hydrated, dihydrate, baby. I'm not too sure, to be honest with you. But either way, firing the key blast, which gotta say, holy cow, they did such a good job on these. I always talk about how Dokkan animations, right, either really nail it with Ki Blast or really fumble with Ki Blast, and this is one that gets it really right, because it's not just blue beam, yellow beam, yellow circle. It actually has a lot of dynamic movement, a lot of different pieces, right? It looks like energy because it's not like just a straight line. It looks like something that's sporadic, erratic, right? It looks exactly how it should. You have these nice shots of obviously the light kind of reflecting off of Dr. WHEELO's bioskeleton, I guess is what you would call that, or biosuit or something like that. Exoskeleton maybe. But yeah, very, very cool. That entire sequence I think is super well done, with the Ki Blast firing off. They absolutely nailed that, right? Definitely very, very cool. And then the Ki Blast hitting the Earth looked fantastic, with obviously the smoke sort of coming up from the ice, which is cool. I guess maybe it's just more like melted water, right, kind of coming up from the blasts, right, which looks cool. And then of course you have the final blast to make impact here, and that looks perfect, if I do say so myself. I think they absolutely nailed it with it not only lingering there, right, very simple attack, but obviously you can see the one that first hits like the background of the lab actually has a bit of a different color for the explosion effect, right, as the smoke kind of bellows up and then the enemy gets hit by it, which is really, really neat. And then that is basically the end. Again, very simple super attack animations, but very well done, I feel like, in my opinion. If we look at it here, right, it is virtually the same thing. Obviously, a little bit of different liberties taken here, but of course, you know, you can kind of see that Dokkan basically did it the exact same, right? It's, again, a little bit more simplistic, I guess you would say, because, of course, right, like the explosion effects are not as detailed. It is just like the one smoke effect. And then obviously like the light isn't exploding out from the bottom of the Ki Blast. But I think it's simple, a quick way to do it, and you know, it looks pretty much just like a Dokkan version of the anime. So I think they definitely did a pretty good job with it, right? Like this is one of those cards that is definitely like simple, and you can tell that it is a little bit of a free-to-play like super attack-esque type of deal. But it still looks really good, and it's very faithful to the original in my opinion. I think that's really cool. Alright, so now we have the active skill. This is a pretty neat way to do this. So we have Goku get bonked, right? Flying up from the bottom is Dr. WHEELO. This nice little transitional shot here, by the way, where when Dr. WHEELO actually hits Goku, right? You can see that it zooms really far into the camera, and it almost kind of like moves past the camera, which I really like, because I feel like that was something that they maybe could have cut out. But I'm glad they kept it in, because I feel like it makes it feel more fluid. And then obviously we have Dr. WHEELO crash Goku into the ceiling here, which I think this looks really, really good. Definitely very, very nicely animated as well. You can see Dr. WHEELO's limbs are also moving, you know, in that crash. Then we have him move Goku basically through the building, but they give you some of the funny anime moving lines, right? The anime speed lines, basically, to kind of represent him flying up so high. You can see Goku gets kind of left in the dust there, and they pan up to the sky, which I think that transition is so nice looking, if I do say so myself. They absolutely did a fantastic job with that, where the blue lines kind of dissipate and then you're basically in space. That looks really, really good. You then cut to the scene of Dr. WHEELO charging up, which the light effects look fantastic here, with him obviously charging the blast. Then, of course, basically extracting, stretching out his arms, rather, excuse me, right? You have this sudden burst of power, which is really cool. The red light is really well done. I love these, like, jagged edges, almost kind of like fire, right? This sort of, like, the energy that's coming off of him. And I love the way that they animated the energy actually flowing out of his body. That's really, really cool, with, like, the energy actually going out, you know, towards the enemy. Definitely very nice. The shading on Dr. WHEELO as well there is also really cool. The screen gets enveloped in red, and you see this beautiful, bro. Holy cow. If you're talking about beams that look good, this is amazing. So you first have it kind of spiral a little bit in the beginning, and then you have basically the little bit of jagged edge on the front with it actually falling towards the sky. And you can see it actually moves a little bit, right? It feels very animated in its descent. You can see that it actually breaks through the clouds right there too, which is pretty cool. And then you actually have the beam break through the clouds here, right, which is a very nice little touch. And of course, come down to the earth below, which this is also really cool, kind of like a first-person POV coming through the clouds. And what's awesome about this is that this animation basically brings you full circle, right? With the implication that Goku is kind of left behind in the air, just sort of floating there, right? As Dr. WHEELO went all the way up to space, right? As this animation takes us through the clouds, you can now see the lab below. And of course, Goku kind of left up in the sky, which is awesome. And a really cool transition, right? To kind of be like, oh yeah, that's where you left Goku, right? And you actually get to see what happens as the blast makes impact with Goku. And they basically do a white flash on the screen to cut to the blast hitting him. I will say this section kind of just looks okay to me, this little section of Goku actually getting hit by it, because they basically just kind of make it a little bit bigger and smaller there. But I think it looks fine, right? It's very simplistic. This is something that maybe they could have improved on, but again, because this is a free-to-play LR and a Prime Battle LR at that, you know, you kind of got to take it with a little bit of grain of salt, and obviously that the animations are not going to be as crazy as a summonable unit for the most part. But one little thing in here compared to the rest of being fantastic is like basically nothing. And now you have this scene, which I love the lighting. Obviously, very, very simple stuff here with Dr. WHEELO basically just looking down at the earth below with the red light kind of shining everywhere, and that looks great. I think there is even a little bit of movement on Dr. WHEELO. It's hard to tell if it's just, yeah, right there. You can see that he actually moves his body just a little bit, which is pretty cool. Again, I would expect that just to be a static PNG that would be up there in the sky, so that's really cool that they actually bothered to animate that all the way through. Let's actually take a look, because I'm curious to look at that beam, how that actually looked in the anime proper. Again, very, very well. This is, by the way, just the notes from the uploader from IKevinX. But yeah, obviously the transition was not in the anime, right? But this is, again, a really cool way to, like, take a character who really doesn't have that many attacks and kind of do something a little bit more unique with it, right? Obviously making that transition and then using this big scene as kind of like the finishing attack, right? I think that's really cool. Yeah, kind of a shame that like they basically just had that little line there rather than, you know, like this. Where did that section go? Like this looks super cool. It would have been really cool to see them include this. They did do some other stuff with the clouds, but obviously this is sort of like the clouds hitting another layer of clouds, and instead we sort of got the line. But I mean, I think maybe it works a little bit better for Dokkan's version, which is of course trying to be more like a super attack. But still looks great nonetheless, I think. And I think that they did a very good job of putting this character into Dokkan with what limited animations they had for him. I'm honestly surprised that they were able to get, you know, technically 3 attacking animations out of this guy. Obviously being, you know, 12 key, 18 key, and active skill. So I think they did a fantastic job with this guy. His animations are very simple, very quick. But I think that they are a great representation of the character and his, you know, just like where he comes from in the anime, and basically being as anime accurate as they can be while also fitting in with how Dokkan works. So I think that's really cool. The only thing that I would maybe even just want a little bit would be Dr. WHEELO being a little bit closer to the camera. I feel like I say this all the time with Dokkan animations, but there's ones that like, I feel like the character's a little bit too far to the camera and I want them to kind of zoom them in. A lot of that though was the film, as we saw with the comparison video. Which again, by the way, shout out to IKevinX. Of course, link to that will be in the description. Definitely go check out his stuff. He makes really cool comparisons and whatnot. But yeah, definitely very, very good animations for our boy Dr. WHEELO. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. His active skill OST, by the way, if you have not listened to it, actually, it's probably going to be the background music in this video anyway, but if you haven't listened to it, please go listen to it. It is so fire, bro. They did such a cool job with like the robot aesthetic and kind of portraying that in the music, but let me know what you think. I am very glad that they did the boy Dr. WHEELO justice. I think that, unfortunately, even though his card is not that great, because, of course, he has flat boost because he is a Prime Battle LR, I think at least we can have some solace that his animations are really, really good. I think that this is definitely, you know, basically, at least where Dokkan is at, certainly the best that they can do for a character like this that doesn't have that many attacks. So, very happy for my boy Dr. WHEELO. I had to make a video on him. I don't always make videos on stuff that isn't like the new big boy Dokkan Fest, but it's Dr. WHEELO, bro. I had to make a video on my goat. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. Again, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next one. Dokkan Assets out. Peace.